This is the small snippet all about supply networks and supply network design. People often talk about supply chain, okay, and what they tend to do is think about the business that they're in or they're interested in, put that in the middle of the chain, and then you go back, which is called the upstream part of the supply chain, to the first tier supplier. They're the people that are supplying you directly, and then they go back to their suppliers, and we call that the second tier, and so forth. If you go downstream towards the end customer, you've got what's called a first tier customer, which might be, say, a distributor or a supermarket, and then you get further down there towards the end of the customer. And it can go first, second, third, fourth, fifth tiers, and we're going to talk about the reason why they're tiers in a little while. If we look at the supply chain for a pint of beer, now beer is quite a simple product. It's made from 4 things: water, barley, hops, and yeast, and a glass and a fixture, and maybe some labels. So if you think about the brewery business, we go back, so they're going to buy water from the water company. They're going to buy probably barley from a farm, or farming will then supply to a distributor. People that grow yeast, it's got to be grown cultivated in a chemical factory, and people buy glass bottles from a glass supplier. So you can see here that the supply chain starts to look more like a network, because you've got these large tiers. So you've got a number of suppliers in this tier and a number in this one. So you can start to see where the word tier comes from in terms of that multitude of people within the supply chain. If we go downstream, the brewery would supply to a warehouse, and then maybe to what's called a DC, which is a distribution centre. If you drive down the M1, you can see these enormous big warehouses. They're like small towns, and they supply the supermarkets from their own distribution centre. Or a distributor might then sell to lots of smaller outlets, corner shops, etc., where they different ones, and they're buying from the same distributor. If we look at glass, now glass is made from various chemicals. If you go back along the supply chain enough, in most things we are making something, you get down to taking things out of the ground. That's where everything comes from. So you can see that even something quite simple as glass has got a more complicated supply chain, because you've got somebody's got to mine it, then they've got to process it, and they've got to sell it to somebody else before it arrives, the people that make the glass bottles. So you can start to see the expansion of the supply chain, and what we end up with is something that looks like a supply network, because as you move away from the center, things get expand in terms of the number of suppliers, the number of businesses that are involved in that supply network. So people talk about the supply side and the demand side, same as they talk about upstream and downstream. When we get in a situation where we're looking at the network, we can see that there can be a degree of complexity. This, for example, is from a fashion business, where there's 3 factories in Europe, each making t-shirts, trousers, and jewellery, for example, and they are supplying to a number of different outlets across Europe. So you can see there that each factory has got to have both logistical and information links with the customers. So the customers have got to tell them how many more t-shirts they need every day, every week, every month, and the factory's got to physically get those to all those different places. So that's quite complex. So we could consider simplifying that, and you can see why now that businesses start to put in extra tiers in their network, because it makes sense. So in that, if you have a warehouse, then you only each in this example, the warehouse is communicating with 3 customers rather than 3 factories communicating with 6 customers. So the complexity is reduced. You can simplify both the information flow and the physical flow. Now, what you have increased is increased cost. So you've got to weigh up all the time, which is more important, agility or cost. And businesses can decide to keep that activity in-house, so they could decide to do that part of the supply chain could be theirs, or they could decide that they're going to outsource that and sell direct, not sell direct to the shops. They could sell direct to those distributors, so it could become from a warehouse to a distributor.